There are several decisions and discussions at several different levels that will affect children here in North Central West Virginia. The U.S. Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals has voted to block West Virginia's Save Women's Sports Act, saying that it violates the rights of transgender athletes. West Virginia's law states that students must compete in sports based on their sex. The ruling is in the case of a Bridgeport Middle School athlete who wanted to compete on sports teams aligning with the child's gender identity rather than sex. The student identifies as female but was born male. The case has been ongoing since 2021. Today's ruling said that because West Virginia's act inherently treats transgender women differently, and because females can participate on any team, but males cannot, it was discrimination. The vote on that court was 2-1. West Virginia Attorney General Patrick Morrisey reacted to that court's decision. A statement, Morrisey said, and I quote here, "We remain confident in the merits of our defense. We are resolute in protecting opportunities for women and girls in sports. Because when biological males win in a women's event, as has happened time and time again, female athletes lose their opportunity to shine," unquote.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about an interesting story out of West Virginia involving a girls' shot put team that decided to stage a protest against a transgender athlete that was allowed to compete against them, aka a biological boy that was allowed to compete against the girls, or to compete on the girls track team, after a U.S. appeals court overruled a West Virginia law banning transgender athletes from competing in sports that align with their opposite sex. So basically, West Virginia said, hey, we're going to ban biological boys from competing against biological girls. Everybody has to compete based off their sex, which, again, is just common sense. That's fair. The U.S. appeal court said no. They slapped that down, and the transgender athlete was allowed to compete anyways. Now, again, this is a girls track and field team, and the event they're doing is shot put. Now, if you guys aren't familiar with shot put, it is the event where you have the ball, the weighted ball, and you put it up kind of under your chin, under your neck, okay, and then you push it forward. Now, I did shot put in high school, okay, when I was doing track and field, and, you know, it's pretty competitive. I mean, it involves a lot of explosiveness, a lot of core strength, a lot of leg strength. Now, people think that you need to have a strong kind of like upper body in order to do it, but that's not really the case. It's actually a test more of your glutes, your quads, your hams, and your core more so than anything, right? It's a test of explosiveness, and I can tell you for certain that it is not fair for a biological male to compete against a biological female in this sport, considering how, if you are a male athlete, it is likely that you're going to have a significant advantage when it comes to explosiveness and muscle mass in your core, in your legs, in your glutes, in places of your body that are fundamental to doing well in this event, okay? So these girls decided to stage a protest against this athlete participating in shot put with them by essentially not competing at all. And I want to show you guys the video of these girl athletes doing this, because this is what's happening all across the country now, right? A lot of these women are now standing up and saying, hey, we're not going to just allow ourselves to have to compete unfairly. We're going to show you that we don't like this. We don't like being forced to compete against competitors of the opposite sex. So let's watch this. You know, unfortunately, you know, this doesn't have any volume to it. But see, she lines up like she's going to do it, and then she steps out. Same thing with this girl. She goes into the circle, walks right back out. This one lines up, gets her stance like she's going to do it, right back out. Yeah, so they're basically all doing the same thing. And I don't blame them. I really don't. I mean, it's clearly and obviously not fair. And this is what they're expressing. I really wish this video had volume to it because I want to know what they're saying, right? What is the conversation being had right now? That's what I really want to know. Yeah, so you've seen that, but unfortunately you didn't hear it. Regardless, let's read about it because this comes as Biden is essentially trying to make it harder for these states to ban biological boys from competing against biological girls if they want to continue to receive federal dollars. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. But at first, I want to read a little bit more about this story. On Tuesday, a United States Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that a West Virginia law that bars biological boys from competing on girls' sports teams cannot be enforced with regard to a 13-year-old who competes on the girls' track and field team at the athlete's middle school. Quote, the defendants cannot expect that this athlete will countermand their social transition, medical treatment, and all the work they have done with their schools, teachers, and coaches for nearly half of their life by introducing themselves to teammates, coaches, and even opponents as a boy. Judge Tony Haytens wrote in his decision according to the Associated Press. Yeah, so this judge sounds woke as hell. Sounds super woke, okay? He sounds liberal. It's important to note that this ruling does not impact the West Virginia law. It only applies to the individual in this particular case, since the individual began transitioning in third grade prior to hitting puberty. However, the ruling does potentially pave the way for other similar cases. Okay, so here's the thing. I personally think that kids shouldn't be allowed to transition before 18 years old. This is why I disagree with it, right? I don't even think this is something that should be litigated, because kids should not be given hormones and treatments before the age of 18, period. A lot of people want to make the argument that, well, if you ban biological boys from competing against biological girls, that's going to be unfair to children who start to transition before puberty, because the argument is that, well, if you don't allow the boy to hit puberty, then the advantages goes away. That's the argument. Well, my counter argument to that is that, well, they shouldn't be allowed to transition in the first place at such a young age. Okay, we shouldn't be allowed it. So it shouldn't even be something that we should be asking a question about. We shouldn't even have any questions about this. So, unfortunately, this is the society that we're living in. We're letting kids do this. So this is kind of a loophole. And I think what is actually going to happen is that it is going to incentivize parents to start pushing their kids into medical transitioning before puberty instead of waiting like they should. They're going to say, no, we need to go ahead and get them transitioning as early as possible so that we can get around this loophole. Okay, so as long as that loophole is not closed up, then this is the problem, right? And I think that is the way that things are going to go, is that they're going to say, well, yeah, you can ban it, but you can't ban it if the child has started transitioning before puberty, because then at that point, well, all the biological advantages goes away, which I'm not even sure if I agree with that argument. On Thursday, several girls stepped out doing a meet to protest the inclusion of the transgender girl at the center of this case. The athlete in this case competes for the Bridgeport Middle School girls track and field team in Bridgeport, West Virginia. Bridgeport participated in the 2024 Harrison County Middle School Championships on Thursday afternoon at Liberty High School in Clarksburg, West Virginia. 7 schools comprised the meet: Bridgeport, Heritage Christian, Notre Dame, South Harrison, Lincoln, Mountaineer, and Washington Irving. Several members of one of the girls' shot put teams stepped in, then stepped out to protest the inclusion of a transgender athlete in the meet. The transgender athlete competes in both shot put and discus throwing. When each of the Lincoln girls had her name called to compete, she stepped into the ring, but instead of throwing the shot put, she stepped down and refused to participate. They did the same for the discus event. Yeah, so we've seen this video. At the end of the day, I don't blame the girls, right? I mean, they're doing this out of principle. I don't agree with this ruling from the U.S. Appeals Court. According to one of the girls who stepped out, the transgender athlete won the shot put event during the championships. Okay, so, yeah, I mean, again, I personally think there's still some advantages here. okay, despite some of the arguments from the left. Riley Gaines, host of the Gaines for Girls podcast on Outkick, shared her thoughts on the girls refusing to compete against a transgender opponent. Quote, "It's a sad day when the middle school girls have to be the adults in the room. Conceding your event is so much easier said than done, but these girls have the tenacity and ability to stand their ground," Gaines said. "I couldn't be more proud of the bravery and willingness to show their raw emotions. Girls and women have had enough." Yeah, so I mean, it is bravery, right? That's real act of bravery, because we know they'll be called transphobic and bigoted simply for saying, hey, we want to compete amongst those of the same biological sex. So while this is happening, you have the Biden administration that is essentially tearing down Title IX, okay, which was designed to protect women, but Biden is essentially trying to make sex and gender the same thing under Title IX, which, again, is just funny to me because these people spent so much time arguing that sex and gender are two different things, which they used as evidence that conservatives had no clue what they were talking about when it came to the subject. But the whole time it was gaslighting, because, again, this is what the Biden administration is doing. He is taking a wrecking ball to one of the foundations of women's rights in this country.
The Biden administration is redefining sex discrimination to offer new protections to LGBTQ students and staff at school.
The most comprehensive updates since 1975.
Catherine Lehman is the Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights at the Department of Education. The newly interpreted federal rules, called Title IX, apply to any schools that receive federal funding. They could face consequences for failing to respond promptly when a student is discriminated against because of their gender, gender identity, or sexual orientation.
Parents, students, educators, districts, universities asked for change to make it more malleable, more flexible, more responsive, more protective, and we think we meet the moment.
Lehman tells me the rules, which go into effect August 1st, extend to after-school programs and all areas within the school's control.
If a student experiences a hostile environment at school based on sex, then the law protects against that perpetuation of that hostile environment.
The rules make no mention about how schools should handle sports.
I'm hoping that they follow the science.
Iowa Republican Congresswoman Marionette Miller Meeks says schools need to be able to ban transgender women and girls from playing in women's and girls' sports.
Until they have a rule, the rule that they put forward will stand, and there will be confusion and misinterpretation.
The Department of Education says it is working on a separate plan to tackle what it calls the complex issue of sports. In Washington, Raquel Martin.
Yeah, so just to be specific about what the Biden administration is doing here, the administration's new regulations aim to equip schools with clear-cut instructions to promptly and effectively respond to all sex discrimination, not limited to sexual harassment, said Catherine Lamont, the Education Department's Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights. The final rule expands the definition of sex discrimination to include sexual orientation and gender identity, applying the reasoning of a 2020 Supreme Court decision that found existing civil rights laws protect employees from discrimination based on transgender status. The new Title IX regulations could, under certain circumstances, prevent individuals from adhering to some Republican-backed laws that LGBTQ advocates have said created a hostile environment for transgender students, such as measures that bar individuals from using facilities that match their gender identity or prevent schools from requiring staff and students to use a transgender person's name and pronouns, a senior administration official said. The final changes are sure to draw swift criticism from Republicans who have slammed the proposed transgender student protections as an attack on protections for cisgender women and girls. Yeah. So with that being said, what you can see here is that the Biden administration has a woke agenda when it comes to this issue. If Biden gets reelected, he'll probably go further with this and go ahead and outright bans on transgender athletes competing in sports based off their opposite sex. He's probably going to go ahead and try to do that, right? He's probably going to update Title IX to do that, but he knows that doing that right now will be a losing issue in an election year, which tells you everything you need to know about this issue, that most American people actually agree with this. But again, this is just one of the things that you have to be aware of if Biden gets reelected again, that he's going to go full on progressive. I mean, he's already a progressive, but he's going to be even more progressive than he is right now. Okay. And this issue right here is just one of the many issues that we need to worry about. This, immigration, the economy, other things that, again, if Biden gets another 4 years, this country is over, right? As we know it, okay? In terms of the America that we knew, it is done, right? So I'm just saying, the Biden administration is looking to gut some of the progress that we made on this issue. And if he's reelected, surely he's going to move forward with expanding Title IX to also try to make it not possible for states to ban biological boys from competing against biological girls. So, hey, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.